Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
Touchdown, Washington!
What's up, boys and girls? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Steel Skin Show, a show hosted by one diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan and one diehard Washington Redskins fan. From game recaps, game previews, news headlines, analysis, opinions, and all kinds of other stuff, we have got you covered on all things Pittsburgh Steelers and Washington Redskins. My name is Patrick, and I am the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers here on the Steel Skin Show.
And I'm Chris, the voice of the Washington Redskins, and I completely forgot. You got to go get him. You got to go get.
Oh, him. Yes, him.
Yeah, we got a special guest coming tonight.
Whoa.
You'll know it when he gets here.
Sid?
No.
Is it Sid?
No.
Even better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll know it when you get here.
Plot twist. Unknown guest coming to my podcast studio.
Yeah.
Can't wait. All right.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Chris, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Real good.
Yeah.
Good weekend.
Good, very good. I was going to say triple threat this weekend, man.
Yes.
Clemson Tigers get it done in big fashion in Louisville. I did not see that coming at all. Pittsburgh Steelers get it done. Your Washington Redskins get it done.
Yeah, it's the
big
trifecta.
week.
It's the trifecta.
Yes. Washington Redskins got it done 27-20 against the Los Angeles Rams, and the Pittsburgh Steelers got things done against the Minnesota Vikings in week 2, 26-9 at Heinz Field. Chris, you want to just get down to Beltway business tonight, or should we wait for the guest? How do we play this thing?
Let's do it. No, let's do it.
All right.
All right. I guess we'll kick with you first.
Okay, we can do that.
Pittsburgh a big win. What, 26-9?
26-9 over the Vikings.
I mean, I got to tell you something, okay? And I did not watch it, so I was just sort of back and forth on the app, on the ESPN app, just checking the score. But for about 2 quarters of this game, man, I mean, Pittsburgh looked sluggish. Is that true? I mean, of course, Minnesota has a good defense.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to point out. Right.
I mean, Minnesota's defense they're not a slouchy defense at all. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But then they just legged it out from that point.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this game?
Well,
you feel better about it than you did Cleveland?
Absolutely. I will say right off the bat, absolutely. And I guess, if you don't mind, Chris, I'll start my recap today the same way the Pittsburgh Steelers started the game, and that is kind of a tribute to Daniel Rooney. I don't know if you saw the beginning of the Steelers game, but just a very moving tribute to Daniel Rooney before the game got started. Big, tribute up there on the screen. Ben Roethlisberger, very emotional, kind of a little dramatic, but still pretty emotional. Came out with a big flag that had the shamrock on it. It said DMR. Roethlisberger threw it in the turf, got down on one knee, kind of bowed his head. Everybody at Heinz Field did the same thing. Just a very moving tribute to Daniel Rooney because this was the first home game he was not in attendance to. The thing about Daniel Rooney, folks, obviously if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, he means a lot to you, means a lot to me. But his contributions to this league as a whole just cannot be underscored. What this man did for football, one of the most influential people in football for that matter. So I thought just a very cool and moving tribute that they had to him to kind of start the game. I thought that was awesome. To get down to the recap, to kind of answer your question, Chris, in terms of sluggishness, yeah, I think the offense struggled a little bit at times. I think the narrative for the offense in this game was more just not being able to cap off drives. It wasn't a matter of not moving the football, just kind of like
finish.
Right, kind of like you talk about with the Washington Redskins, just not able to kind of capitalize and finish off these drives. But guys, I feel great about this one. Now, if you haven't already ran into it already, Steelers fans, because I certainly have, I've ran into it several times. You're gonna have the annoying conversation of, well, it was Case Keenum throwing the football, not Sam Bradford. And therefore, the Pittsburgh Steelers got very, very lucky, and that's why they won this football game. If you want to run with that narrative, you certainly can. Do I think that if Sam Bradford played in this game, would it have been a little bit different? Yeah, probably. I mean, a healthy Sam Bradford is probably a lot better than a healthy Case Keenum. But execution is still execution. The Vikings still have a great defense. Okay.
All right, here we go. We
got to stop the show.
Special guest. Okay. Now, this is a rare thing, folks. Gosh. Okay.
We should get out of my life and shut up.
Okay, I can't figure out if this is Napoleon Dynamite
Look how low his mouth is.
or Mike Glennon, quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Okay, so in honor of Mike Glennon, who's probably going to start against the Pittsburgh Steelers, here's Napoleon.
There he is.
And here's the thing. He's going to be here every week. An extended stay.
Not if they win next week.
Napoleon.
That thing won't sit on my table if Mike Glennon goes like...
Oh, yes, it will. In fact, you will be the honorary first-time winner of the Mike Glennon / Napoleon Dynamite Award.
Tell you what, and we'll even have him just look at me the whole show like that. Just with that look on his face.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we need to think up some kind of award to give this to, like, the bonehead play.
The bonehead
or the idiot, or the freaking idiot gosh award. That's what we need to do.
You need to go and get an Uncle Rico trophy.
They didn't have it.
Because, Rico actually dabbled in football earlier in his career.
He could throw it over those mountains.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they had put him in, he would have won the state championship.
I was going to say, if you had like a Matt Schaub style performance, here is the Uncle Rico award of the
what?
week.
I could find Mark Sanchez.
And that could be
that could be Pedro.
Wow.
But anyway, I figure what we can do with Napoleon is whatever team we feel like has the biggest bonehead play of the week,
we'll just say
award winner.
You are the Napoleon Dynamite.
As it stands, I feel like Napoleon should be entered in as an honorary member
of the Steelskin show. Okay, well, comment below. Guys, what do you think? We have open hearts. Our doors are open. But what do you guys think? We value your opinion. Wow.
Fact. Let me just go ahead and
snap that real quick.
I'll snap that selfie real quick. But anyway.
That does look like Mike Glennon. It's unreal how much
I was thinking about that last night looking at him. I was like, dude, is that Napoleon or is that Mike Glennon?
Tell you what, this is going to be the YouTube thumbnail this week. You know how many views this is going to get us? Steelskin Show episode 65, but a zoomed up shot of Napoleon Dynamite's face. That's going to get the views. We've been doing it wrong this entire time.
I mean, here's the thing, man. If anybody else finds an Uncle Rico,
send it to us.
Send it to us, dude. We may even pick up the postage.
Absolutely. Steelskinshow@gmail.com. That is our business email. You got an Uncle Rico statue, send it our way. We'll incorporate him into the show as well. Wow. Chris, I got to take hats off to you, man. I did not expect this, and this was a pleasant surprise.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's your Bears preview for the week, everybody. We don't have to do a preview show this week. There it is. There you go.
Now my phone is hung on the camera mode.
Well, Mike Glennon broke the show.
He broke my phone.
Whoa.
Idiot.
Idiot. Gosh.
Okay. All right. So yes. That's what I was going to ask you, Patrick. That's the other thing I wanted to kind of bump set you on here.
Right.
How much of a read can you get on Pittsburgh's defense with Bradford not playing? Obviously, Case Keenum has been in football games before. This was not. You were not playing Craig Tolzien.
That's Scott Tolzien.
Whatever. Does it matter? Do you really think it matters?
Do you
Eddie?
care?
Do you really think it matters? You weren't playing a guy that hadn't played before.
Yeah.
And so
no, he's been on several football teams, and that was partly what I was going to say. Is that obviously is Case Keenum Tom Brady? No, but Case Keenum is a guy who's played football a time or two. He's been on a couple of teams. He does know how to throw football. And at the end of the day, execution is execution. You still have to go out there and win a game. Wow, did he actually break the phone? Because now I see you taking the screen.
Dude, I'm
off.
taking the battery. I mean, it's home.
Jeez.
It won't do anything.
Wow, thanks for nothing, Napoleon.
Yeah,
This is your fault. I blame you.
And he wouldn't give me his tots.
Give me some of your tots. But yeah, if you haven't ran into that already, you are going to get that at some point this week, Steelers fan. And just kind of let that roll off of you.
Well, here's the thing. You gave up 9 points.
Yes, you gave up 9 points. Absolutely.
I mean, the Scott Tolzien-led Colts last week put 9 up.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is a bad quarterback. I mean, a good quarterback. The Steelers did what they were supposed to do.
Well, they did what they were supposed to do, but you still had to deal with their defense as well. And they still, in my opinion, have one of the better defenses in this league. Secondary, up front. They're an amazing football team.
And just looking at some replays and some here, just kind of getting a sense of the game, I didn't feel like their defense had anything to apologize for.
No, absolutely not. Well, in fact, why don't we just start there? I think that's a nice segue into the defense performance. Chris, I don't know about you, man. I am more than impressed with the Steelers defense right now. We've now got 2 weeks under the belt, and obviously with only 2 weeks in, you don't want to draw any final conclusions. Excuse me. There's still 14 games to be played. But what we have over the last 2 weeks is consistency. We have seen a defense do great in all phases of the defense. Pass rush, secondary, and against the run. They were great last week against Cleveland. They were good this week, again, against the Minnesota Vikings. I guess we'll start with the run defense. Against the run, yet again, we were very impressive. I think we minimized Dalvin Cook's impact on this game. And really, Chris, outside of that big 25-yard run that he had, we completely shut him down. What
were his final numbers?
I think he went like 12 carries, 60-something yards. But what I'm saying is, outside of the 25-yard touchdown run that he had. Yeah. And look, in terms of that run, I went back and watched it several times on Game Pass. I don't think the defense completely crumbled on that play. Chris, you and I are big Clemson Tigers fans, so we were exposed to Dalvin Cook probably a little more than we wanted to be. He's one of those running backs, man, that when he bounces it outside,
yes, he's dead.
Bye. Yeah. He's very dangerous. And going back and watching film and trying to figure out what happened, Sean Davis, who plays strong safety, which is more towards the right side of the field anyway, and Joe Hayden, who is playing right outside corner, they both kind of bit down to the inside on that play. So by the time Dalvin Cook bounces to the outside, he had nothing but space in front of him. But outside of that, no other big runs in this game. Minimized the run yet again. And a lot of the success they had against the run in this game mainly came from the big push up front. I feel very confident in saying what I'm about to say. You guys may disagree with me. We'll start with Cameron Hayward. Cameron Hayward, I think, had the best game he's ever had in his life in this game. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, Patrick, he had 6 total tackles, 2 for losses, and he had no sacks. He's had 3 sack performances at times. So why was this the game where you thought he was at his best? Guys, you just had to watch the game. He pushed through that Minnesota offensive line like they were pieces of paper all game long. He looked like J.J. Watt in his first couple of years. They could not stop him. And what's that guy's name? Hold on. Nick Easton. Vikings guard Nick Easton. That guy's probably sitting in an ice bath right now. He's probably going to be sitting in one all week. What Cameron Hayward did to that guy in this game was probably illegal in about 30 states. I mean, it was just unreal. He murdered that guy all game long. Against the pass, against the run. I just don't think I've ever seen Cameron Hayward this dominant before. And the thing about Cameron Hayward is there's never been a point in time where I felt like, oh, he had a bad game. He's always been a good defensive lineman, always been solid, always been steady. I just don't think I've ever seen him this dominant before. I don't know what it was. I don't know what was wrong with him. But I think this was by far the best game he ever had. Great performance from Javon Hargrave. Can't say enough about how he's playing. Tyson Aluala. Boy, oh boy, does Kevin Colbert not look like a hero for this signing right here. What he is doing right now in Stephon Tuitt's place is absolutely unreal. Obviously, we want Stephon Tuitt back. Obviously, I think we need Stephon Tuitt down the stretch. But what Tyson Aluala is giving us right now in place of Stephon Tuitt is absolutely unreal. Against the run, against the pass. This guy has been more than impressive. I'm very, very impressed with him. Another stud performance by Shake and Bake, a.k.a. Ryan Shazier and Vince Williams. Those guys are very, very quick to clog lanes, fill gaps. They both play with a very quick and intense play style. They had a good game. Pass rush. Okay, so, like I said at the beginning, do not want to speak too soon. But, Chris, I feel like over the last couple of years, the Steelers, obviously we're called Blitzburg. We're called the Steel Curtain. But I feel like over the last couple of years, the Steelers' pass rush just kind of has been lacking. It hasn't been that dominant pass rush that it's been over the past couple of years. And I feel like in 2017, even though it's early, we're beginning to see this defense get back to what they're supposed to be. Very much like last week against the Cleveland Browns, the pass rush was absolutely relentless in this game. Poor Case Keenum ran for his life all game long. And look, folks, do not let the stat line tell you the entire story. If you're one of those people who look at box scores, you're not going to get the full story. Case Keenum went down a total of 2 times in this game. He was hit multiple times. He was hurried multiple times. He was pressured all game long. I felt like the Steelers easily could have came out of this game with well over probably 7 or 8 sacks. They left a ton of sacks out there on that football field. I can think of 3 or 4 instances right off the top of my head where Cameron Hayward almost got to him. Bud Dupree got good pressure all game long. He sacked him one time, but I feel like he could have had a couple more. Ryan Shazier hit him big one time and almost got to him. Mike Hilton almost got to him on a cornerback blitz. TJ Watt, before he left the game with his groin injury, he was harassing the Vikings offensive line all game long. Yeah, I mean, we left a ton of sacks out there on the football field, and I talked about it last week, and I'll say it again. The pressure came with 4 guys, and I cannot tell you how big that is. If you can get pressure with 4 and you can drop 7 into coverage, that is so revolutionary for your defense. And that was something that this defense struggled with last year. Keith Butler, in order to make up for the lack of pressure, was having to rush 5, 6 guys. We're getting pressure with 4 this year, and that is benefiting the defense so much. So I'm very excited about that. Don't want to look now, but it appears that the pass rush is getting back to where it needs to be like it was in the past. Secondary performance. We'll talk about that now. Say it with me, guys. Man-to-man coverage. Great performance by the secondary on Sunday. Did not allow Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Travis Rudolph, or Laquan Treadwell to have a big impact on this game.
Yeah, don't you think that? I mean, to me, when you have, and I'm not trying to interrupt you here, but to me, the thing I always fear, and our defense has been so bad over the years, but it always seems like no matter who was a quarterback, if you had some skill position guys, it always felt like, man, all it takes is a couple of a busted coverage, one big play, and all of a sudden you're getting owned by one or more of their really good skill position guys.
That's a great point.
And I thought Pittsburgh really neutralized.
I mean,
Stephon Diggs is a stud.
Oh yeah, he's a stud who only had 2 catches in this game.
Exactly,
by the way.
2 catches. I mean, you look at what he did week 1.
Yeah.
And what he didn't do week 2.
And Adam Thielen as well. What he did in
had
week
a
1.
massive game.
Yeah, and also I do want to shout out Alex Kazor of Steelers Depot for this next stat I'm about to read. Some of the catches that Thielen had came in garbage time. Okay,
right.
So when it was
game
all over.
Yes.
Before garbage time started, Chris, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs were held to 6 catches for 66 yards. Okay? And this is where we cue Joe Hayden and Artie Burns. No, they did not have perfect games, but the work that these 2 guys did in man-to-man coverage on these 2 was absolutely outstanding in my opinion. Also, Travis Rudolph. He was a guy I was very, very worried about going into this game. The Steelers traditionally don't do very well with athletic tight ends. This is something they've struggled with in the past. He only had 5 catches in this game. Now, the most frustrating play of the game probably came on that big 3rd and 20 play where Case Keenum threw it over the top and Travis Rudolph went up and got it over the middle they did convert that 3rd down, which I almost jumped out my window. I was very frustrated at that play. But going back and watching that play, I don't think it was a big breakdown in coverage. I mean, he caught that ball with one hand, and he had to jump way up high to get it. I just think Rudolph made a great play there. Yep. But outside of that play, Rudolph did not have an impact on this game. But like I said, not a perfect day from Artie Burns and Joe Hayden. I think I can think of a couple of times right off the bat where Diggs might have gotten the better of Hayden right off the line of scrimmage, and that's going to happen from time to time, man. When you're playing man-to-man coverage, you are living and dying by the sword. And you're going to lose some of those matchups. It's about how you recover. It's about the next play. And for the most part, I thought Joe Hayden won the majority of those matchups. Artie Burns did a fine job in coverage on Adam Thielen or Diggs because those guys kind of rotated sides of the field. The one complaint I did have about Artie Burns in this game, and it was the same complaint that I had last week as well. Burns, and we knew this coming out of the University of Miami, that guy's a little grabby at times. I think he was penalized 3 times in this game.
But you know what? A lot of that will work itself out.
Oh, sure. I'm not worried about it.
Breland was grabby coming out of Clemson.
Yeah.
In his first year, he struggled with it. Yeah. So I think it's something that they'll work out of. But it is a habit with some guys. Yeah, well, especially when you're a man coverage corner and you're a ball hawking corner. It's just kind of something. And look, to defend Artie Burns a little bit, I kind of think because of all the changes with the NFL rules, I think the line's been blurred a little bit in terms of how much contact you can initiate at the line of scrimmage versus how much you can't. Right. I do think, because look, some referees will let it go, some won't. So at times it's one of those relative things. But regardless, Artie Burns can be a little bit grabby at times. That is something he needs to work on. But for the most part, very, very solid game from him. I thought our safeties had a good game. I thought both Sean Davis and Mike Mitchell played very well. Mike Mitchell was surprisingly good in this game out in pass coverage. We've talked about Mike Mitchell before. He's somebody who obviously tackles well. He hits hard, good at crossing the middle of the field and knocking the ball out of guys' hands, but he's not very good out in pass coverage. I thought he had a fine day out in coverage. I also thought Sean Davis was all over the football field. Good game from him.
Mike Hilton. The saga continues, Chris. The guy just keeps making the plays, man. Had a good day out in man-to-man coverage, but I think the big play we're all harping on was the massive hit on Case Keenum. This is a play that we saw Keith Butler call up several times in preseason, a cornerback blitz where Mike Hilton lines up in the slot, and then he goes after the cornerback. Hit Case Keenum as he threw. I wish it would have gotten home as a sack, because that would have made it better, but right as that ball released, Hilton is hitting him right in the gut. And I know I keep repeating it every week, but I just continue to be amazed with how this 5'9" kid affects the line of scrimmage. It's just amazing to me that a guy this small is able to do this. I don't know if it's a matter of Keith Butler realizes that, hey, most teams probably look at him and think, oh, he's not going to blitz.
Right.
And maybe they use that to their advantage, but it's amazing to watch how tough this guy is and how big he is at the line of scrimmage. So another good game from him. And to close off the defensive discussion, just with a couple of stats here, just to put into perspective the kind of day they had. So, Chris, first off, on third downs, the Vikings were 5 of 15. So, one of the things you talk about with the Redskins a lot is that they're a team who struggle on third down. Well, the truth is the Steelers have kind of been a struggling third down team in the past as well. We haven't gotten off the field on some of these critical third down situations. So, we were 5 of 15 on third down in this game. That was impressive. The Vikings were also 0 of 3 on fourth down in this game as well, and they only had 237 yards of total offense. And I want to hat tip Bob Labriola of Steelers.com, who's one of my personal favorite Steelers writers, for these stats I'm about to read you. In 12 offensive possessions, the Vikings managed more than one first down on only 3 of the 12 possessions. On those 12 possessions, 6 ended with punts. Twice they turned the ball over on downs, and once they turned the ball over via a fumble. The Vikings finished with more yards in punts than they did in total offense, and they converted only 5 of 18 on possession downs. That's only 27%. And then this stat he points out, which is very exciting, through 2 games, the Steelers have 9 sacks and 9 passes defended. So, like I said, guys, we're only 2 games in, but your defense looks good, and I'm very excited about the defense.
Yeah,
the direction this defense is going. Yeah. Moving on to the offensive side of the football now. I think the biggest narrative for this offense in this game was just not being able, like I said at the beginning, to cap off drives. Been through 2 more touchdowns in this game, but 4 more times they got down into Vikings territory, and they just weren't able to completely finish those. So old reliable Chris Boswell had to come out and help them out with some field goals. One thing I do want to do right off the bat is kind of squash this narrative that they had a bad game. You can't say the Steelers' defense didn't move the ball down the field.
Right.
It was just a matter of capping off some of these drives. Was that frustrating? Yes. But when you think about it, the Minnesota Vikings have one of the best defenses in the NFL. With their front, with guys like Everson Griffin, Linville Joseph, Anthony Barr, and then you factor in their secondary with the guys like Xavier Rhodes, Andrew Sendejo, Harrison Smith. They've got one of the most loaded defenses in this league. So will I take putting 26 on this team? Yes, absolutely I will take putting 26 on this team. They're also a good red zone team as well. Got to factor that in. So it's kind of like you say, Chris, I'm not here to tell fans what they should think, but I think if you came to the conclusion that this offense played poorly, I think you're wrong, in my opinion. To start with the passing game, another stellar good performance from Ben Roethlisberger. He finished 23 of 35 for 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions this week. I did not think this was Ben's best game ever, and I didn't think there wasn't anything ugly about his performance. I just think many times he forced a lot of throws in this game. I think a lot of that had to do with Antonio Brown was kind of locked up all game long. Look, you got to give Xavier Rhodes credit.
Listen, Xavier Rhodes is a shutdown.
Oh, and give the guy credit. He did a fine job on Antonio Brown this game.
This dude is upper echelon coverage-wise. And
when you consider that Antonio Brown was targeted 11 times in this game and he only caught 5 of those 11, he did a fine job. I just think a lot of the times Ben grew frustrated with that and tried to force the ball to him. And I also think it's kind of funny how the narrative changes from week to week. Last week, the big narrative was, the Steelers aren't throwing the ball, and they're not throwing the ball deep enough.
Right.
Well, I felt like in this game we threw the ball deep too much. You know what I mean? I felt like Ben forced a lot of deep balls in this game. Now, it wasn't completely futile, though, because you had a big pass interference call to AB. that got them down the field. You also had a big 50-yard gain, Martavis Bryant as well. So it wasn't a completely futile effort in trying to gun the ball downfield all game, but I did feel like maybe this week they threw the ball deep just a little too much. But look, apart from those minor complaints, I think Ben had a very good game overall. He tossed 2 touchdown passes yet again in this game. The first was the 27-yard touchdown to the alien, Martavis Bryant. Welcome back, buddy. A very simple route here, but just showing off the freak athleticism. Just a very simple, quick slant route. Then Bryant turns up the 4.2 speed and takes it for a 27-yard touchdown. I was very glad to see him get back to form in this game. He also had the big 50-yard touchdown, the big 50-yard catch down the field. I didn't talk about it last week, but I felt like there were times where Todd Haley wasn't incorporating Martavis Bryant enough into the game plan. I didn't talk about it because it was only 1 week, but I felt like going into this game they needed to get him more involved, and they did. So I was very happy for him. And then the second one went to Juju Smith-Schuster, had his first touchdown pass, a shovel pass from the 4-yard line, takes it in for a touchdown. And that wasn't the only highlight Smith-Schuster had in this game. Chris, Harrison Smith's funeral will be held sometime this week. The block, there was a running play to Le'Veon Bell, and the block that Smith-Schuster put on Harrison Smith was absolutely unreal. A lot of people wonder why we compare him to Hines Ward. Well, this was the play right here why. Harrison Smith went airborne on that block and just smacked the ground. Love this guy's physicality. Love his willingness to throw his body around as well. I think this guy is a true Steeler through and through. And last but not least about the offense, the run game. One of the things that I thought was critical going into this game, Chris, was the Steelers needed to establish their run game. And it was going to be a difficult thing to do when you consider, Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin. But I felt like the Steelers needed to find some way to establish Le'Veon Bell in this game, and I think they did. Now, let's go ahead and get one thing right off the bat. When you look at Le'Veon Bell's stats, he ran the ball 27 times for 87 yards. So when you do the basic math, that's averaging 3.2 yards per carry. So I know what a lot of people are thinking. Okay, how is that a good game? First off, to put up 87 yards against a front like the Vikings, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, that's solid work.
Number 2, when you watch Le'Veon Bell this week, he looked more like Le'Veon Bell. We saw the patience in the backfield. We saw his reaction time improve. We also saw some bigger runs in this game. He had several runs of 10, several runs of 11. Had those nice kind of pick the defense apart 4, 5, and 6-yard runs. Excuse me. Whoa.
Woo.
When you eat cheeseburgers and then drink coffee,
Oh.
the esophagus suffers. I don't advise it.
I don't know how you're doing it.
Oh, man. I just felt like in this game, Bell got back to form, and I genuinely believe what I'm about to say. I think the 100-yard games are coming. I think this was a big game for Bell to sort of get that last remaining rust off, feel the defense, feel the offensive line. I really feel like the 100-yard games are coming from this point. I think this was a big step for him. And the offensive line's performance, I think they were better in run blocking. I thought that was part of the problem with Bell last week. I don't think the run blocking was very good. I thought it was more improved this week. Pass protection, Ben only went down 2 times in this game. Alejandro Villanueva is the one who gave up the 2 sacks. Don't know how else to say it. He had a terrible game. Now, when we get to the news segment, we'll explain why. But Everson Griffin did get the better of him a lot in this game, and he did give up 2 sacks. But for the most part, that's really the only big complaints I had with the offense. Special teams, another big performance from the special teams. Obviously, Chris Boswell knocked home 4 field goals, and Tyler Matakevich did it again. Didn't block a punt this week, but the Vikings did try to go for it on 4th down. They tried to do a fake pass, and Tyler Matakevich was there to break it up. He continues to be a big stud for us on special teams, and after the disappointing season the Steelers had last year in their special teams, it's very encouraging to see what they're doing this year. So I know Danny Smith is a very, very happy man. So that wraps it up for my game recap. Guys.
Hey, do you want to go ahead and hit your news?
You
want to go do news?
I don't know. What do you want to do? What does Napoleon want to do? I think we should ask him.
I don't want, you're on a roll, dude.
I don't think so. I'm trying not to vomit coffee and burgers up over here.
Oh, okay. So we'll hit the skin.
No, we can go ahead and roll the news. That's fine.
No. Let's hit the skin.
Okay.
Let's hit give your esophagus a chance to
recover. Yes, but anyway, I guess last little thoughts on the game. To come out at home, defend home field, beat a team like the Minnesota Vikings 26-9. I thought was huge. The offense, I feel like the offense right now is... It's kind of weird because I felt like going into the season, Chris, it was the offensive side of the football that would be more dominant. The defense would struggle. The narrative over the last 2 weeks has been defense has been the hot side of the football. Offense has been struggling.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens early in the season.
Yeah, well, look, I don't...
defenses early in the year, the rule is defenses tend to be ahead of offense.
Yeah, and I don't worry about this offense. I think it's just a matter of they're dipping their foot in the pool. It's just a matter of jumping in at this point. I think the big performances are coming. I think Bell's going to improve. I think Ben... is going to get more in tune with the receivers. I think the big performances are coming. And no, I will not apologize for this win because Sam Bradford did not play.
Thank you.
I wish Sam Bradford all the best. I don't ever celebrate when players get injured. But no, that's not much of a narrative for me. So, big win, 2-0, and it feels really good. Chris, let's kick it over to you, buddy. The Washington Redskins get it done against the LA Rams. Spoil the Los Angeles debut, 27-20 against your former offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, ruining his LA debut as well. Now, Chris, things are pretty doom and gloom last week. Let's be honest about it. We were all a little scared. Now, I don't want to speak too soon because you're the Redskin fan in the room, and I know it's a long season. You got 14 more games to go. After this week, after seeing how the run game improved, after seeing the defensive performance, where are you now in week 2? Is there a glimmer of hope? Do you feel better about this team now?
Yeah, I mean, like we said last week, you don't want to take a week 1 loss and extrapolate over 16 games. You know what I mean? And the NFL is a week-to-week league.
Yes.
I mean, it is.
Yes.
What we did find out is we are better than the Indianapolis Colts. So we know that. We know that for sure. We're at the very base of it 18 points better.
Don't hate on Neil Tolson.
Neil.
Don't hate on Neil Tolson.
Scott. Or Craig.
Robert.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I feel really good, and there's, heading into this game, there were 2 narratives, and the big narrative was, how are the Redskins going to operate against Sean McVay because he knew everything about them, and I'm sure on the left coast it was the same thing. How are the Rams going to operate because Jay Gruden knows everything about Sean McVay.
And by the way, I think that was a legitimate narrative because I think we saw the Carolina Panthers struggle with it with Sean McDermott in Buffalo.
Right. It wasn't a bad narrative, but my point was that was so much of the story. And what I found very interesting is both coaches handled it somewhat differently. If you go back and watch the game, Sean McVay decided to juice things up with his offense by going no huddle. A lot of quick counts. Run to the line of scrimmage. He really tried to dictate pace. Jay Gruden just said, you know what? We're going to pound it. We're going to run the football.
These are hurting my ears. Like you have no idea how bad
But just think if you had Napoleon's head, how would you feel? Okay? No matter what is going on with your head right now.
I wouldn't feel it because the hair would get in the way. I'd be more in comfort.
But it'd be itchy. You'd be itching.
Vote for Pedro.
You'd have to be itching.
Vote for Pedro.
Okay, so I thought it was very interesting how both coaches, attacked each other by just putting little wrinkles in. Now, the wrinkles that Jay Gruden put in were just big and physical, and that was, we're going to run the football down your throat.
Yes, and I was going to ask you about that.
If you are a fan of old school football, like I'm a fan of old school football, dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
Well, let me, and I don't want to interrupt you, but let me ask you this. Do you feel like in this game, because I actually did take the time to go back and watch this game on Game Pass. Holy cow, this is bad. Whoa. Stay down, Burger. Stay down.
Do not throw up on me.
Hey, hits.
You cannot do that.
Hey, hits. We're all about hits here on the Steelskin Show. We got to get the views up, man. And if I got to vomit to do it, I'll do it.
Protect Napoleon.
I'll do anything for a quick buck. I'll vomit on Napoleon. I felt like in this game and going back and watching it that Jay Gruden came out and said, okay, I'm not going to do this, run the football for the sake of doing it here and there.
No, he committed.
I don't care what the outcome is, I'm going to run the football.
No.
Did you feel like that in this game?
I mean, to the tune, I'll tell you how committed they were to running the football. Last drive of the game, okay, for the Redskins offense. Score tied 20-20, 7 minutes and some change left on the clock. And we watched Samaje Perine. I'm going to pull it up here. 1st and 10, Samaje Perine for 2 yards. Second and 18. Samaje up the middle for 12 yards.
That's a Todd Haley
First
play call
and
right
10
there.
at the 42, at Washington's 42. Samaje Perine up the middle for 5 yards. Second and 5, Samaje Perine up the middle for 10 yards. First and 10, Samaje for 3 yards. Second and 7, there was a pass there. First and 10 at the Los Angeles 17, another run. So that tells you, man, they were not just giving lip service to the run game.
Yeah.
They were completely comfortable pounding the Rams on that
Committed
final
to
drive.
it. Yep.
One of the things I found interesting in the post-game press conference is Gruden said they felt like going in, they had a very definite size advantage over LA. They were going to play, LA plays 3-4, and they play a little more traditional 3-4.
Right.
They don't have a lot of four-man. They do have four-man looks, but they play in base a lot more than most 3-4s do. And I think it was great to see them say, look, we're going to attack them this way.
Right.
Just as a segue into like thinking about players, Rob Kelly had a fantastic game. I thought there were 2 runs where he really left yards on the field. I think he still cuts in when he needs to cut out. Sometimes he cuts out when he needs to cut in. I think he'll continue to improve, but it was nice to see him getting chunk yards. He went down, and what I found interesting, and we're going to get to Chris Thompson in a minute, because he was the MVP of this game.
Right.
But the Redskins did not hesitate. Of course, I guess they really didn't have any choice, but, Jay Gruden could have said, you know what, Perine's kind of getting started slow. I'm not gonna stick with him. Let's just go let's go all in on the pass. We'll just move down with the short passing game. He didn't do that, and I thought this was a great confidence builder for Samaje Perine.
Yeah,
because he did get started a little bit slow. I think he runs better right now, and I think Rob Kelly runs better right now in the spread gun looks. I think he's better in gun runs than he is as a traditional tailback.
and didn't you kind of also feel like this game was big for Kelly, because I feel like Kelly gets hated on too much.
Well,
I feel like a lot of
Kelly-
people talk a lot of crap about him, and
Yes.
he's not a bad running back, man. He's just
we
not.
all sort of, as the preseason went on, and even after the first game, I caught myself saying, "Is this guy really it?"
Yeah.
So it was nice to see him say, "Look,
It was his way of kinda-
give me something to work with.
Yeah.
I'll get you yards."
Yeah.
I thought it was definitely the best running attack I've ever seen Jay Gruden have, and I thought it was a great way to calm the offense down as opposed to what we saw last week.
Yeah.
I thought it was much more integrated, and the bottom line is this: nothing bonds an O-line better than running the football.
Yeah.
This is what these guys are built for. This is what most of these guys want to do.
Yeah.
They want to physically move the dude in front of them out of the way so their running back can pick up yards.
Yeah.
And it's something that just completely it infuses into an offensive line psyche.
Yeah.
So
Well, and do you think this game could finally be the game where Jay Gruden has the Jimmy Neutron brain blast moment where he's like, oh.
I hope so. We've had decent run games, or we've had good running games.
But that was my next question. I feel like there's been these games, but then he just the next week it's like, no, we're not going to run.
That's what I'm saying. So the jury's out on whether this is going to be our identity. But I feel like right now, this is the path.
Right.
I feel like we need to be physical up front. We need to slow team. We need to get them out of blitz looks as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the way to do it. I'll throw this out there real quick. Chris Thompson, folks, is a weapon. And he is a weapon that is emerging right now as we speak.
Yeah.
In this game, he had three carries for 77 yards, a 61-yard touchdown. He had 3 catches for 29 yards. The only smudge on this game is he dropped a wide open 50. I mean, he had 50 yards of green grass, and if he catches that football, it's another touchdown.
Yeah.
And this game's a blowout. But Chris Thompson on the 61-yard run, the Redskins took a play out of the Steelers handbook. That draw play is a draw play that the Steelers run sometime, and it sort of requires the running back to be almost at a standstill.
Yes.
Set his blocks up, then explode.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Chris did.
Yep.
There's a lot of talk about, man, Chris needs more carries. We need to get Chris more involved. There was a point in this game, especially that lull in the third quarter where it just seemed like everything was going wrong offensively, where I felt like, yeah, maybe we ought to give the ball to Chris. But you've got to balance. Right now, Chris Thompson had 6 offensive touches in this game for 116 yards.
Yeah.
So,
and isn't there
for
a part of
106
you?
yards. So I don't know. You want to be careful because those six plays were impactful.
You don't want to take
You know
that
what I mean?
magic away, when you're preparing for an opponent. And don't you also
Exactly.
feel like
And
Thompson can be your Tyreek Hill? He can
That's
be
right.
your
I mean,
Darren Sproles,
and if this is sort of a less is more type
Absolutely.
thing. I'm
Absolutely.
not sure you really want to see Chris Thompson carrying the ball 10 times,
Yeah.
15 times. I'm not sold on that yet. But I think you want him to be an impactful player, and the best way to do that is make sure you're getting him in situations where he can be that. And a 1st and 10 play with him lined up as tailback,
yeah.
a 50 gut type play, is that the
Is
best
that what
use
he
for him?
is? Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how he develops through the week. Kirk Cousins in this game. Everybody wants to talk about Kirk Cousins. Folks, Kirk Cousins had a solid game.
Yeah.
He had a solid game. He did exactly what he was asked to do.
Yeah.
This game plan was very obviously built to push the ball down the field with the run.
Yeah.
And at that point, the quarterback becomes a game manager.
Yeah. And don't you also feel like there's just times, and I follow a lot of Redskins fans on Twitter, with doing the show and on. I feel like with you guys fan base, there's times where you can't have it both ways, because I feel like
exactly that was my big thing. You cannot have it both ways.
don't complain that we need to take pressure off of Kirk by running, and then you run.
then when you
Kirk
do-
didn't have where's the 300 yards? It's like, come on,
exactly.
like, what do you want?
That was my exact thought Sunday evening. Is you can't have it both ways.
Yes,
Kirk did in this game what he needed to do.
absolutely.
And you can't. We asked him. Yeah, here's the thing. There was a streak. The Redskins were 3 out of 5 on their first third downs, and then after the last third down completion, which was a 15-yard completion to Chris Thompson on a 3rd and 3, we went through a streak of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight third down where we did not convert.
Yeah.
A few incompletes. We went 1 short of the sticks. But then when the game's on the line, you've got to come up with a play. Kirk Cousins converted 2 huge third downs in this game on that drive. One of them being a touchdown. Beautiful pass to Ryan Grant. So I feel like at the end of the day, for the type of game plan the Redskins had, Kirk had the type of game you kind of want your quarterback to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were a couple of big drops. Chris Thompson did drop one that I felt like would have been a touchdown. Terrell Pryor had another drop. But there were some misses. I'm not gonna the 2 fades or the 1 fade to Josh Dotson. Those were maddening to me. You get 1st and goal. You pound it on 1st down. Why not pound it on 2nd down and at least see what happens?
Yeah.
Instead, and Kirk even said, I rushed the fade to Dotson. Didn't give him a chance to maybe get a little separation from the corner. The next play had Jamison Crowder wide open in the middle of the end zone. Folks, Kirk Cousins, I feel like right now is just very gun shy in the red zone. And throw into Chris Thompson on kind of that corner route. It was ugly. It was nowhere near the best option. But I just wonder if Kirk right now just doesn't want to go to the middle, just doesn't want to throw in the middle of the end zone. Maybe I'm wrong. But Crowder was wide open. We've got Seinfeld on the brain. But overall, Kirk did in this game what they needed Kirk to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see.
I felt like overall, there's just not a lot to complain about. There wasn't any eye popping. There wasn't any pop in his game. In this game, But
they didn't have to.
They didn't really have to have
They didn't have to.
They didn't have to. So I think he did what they wanted him to do. One thing that struck me as we're progressing through our offensive analysis, it's clear that there's not a lot of comfort on the outside right now with Pryor and Dotson. That's clear.
Yeah.
I thought Jamison Crowder had a really good game. It was good to see him get in the flow. Jordan Reed, I think, had 6 catches in this game on 6 targets. He went down with a chest injury. Hopefully he's going to be okay. He did come back. But I felt like there were times where you could just tell, man, that stuff going on the outside, there's just not a lot of comfort there. So that's just something that I'll admit, I underestimated as the preseason progressed. I thought it was something that would really kind of hit the season and pop, but it hasn't. But I think at some point it will come together.
It's probably a comfort zone thing. You know, those are newer targets. And
I thought our O-line was much better than it was against Philadelphia. That's evidenced by how we did against the run. There were some times where Aaron Donald got in very quickly on Sean Fowl. It was almost humorous.
Well, and how much of that is just how good Donald is versus how bad?
Sometimes he almost caught the pitch that Chris Thompson got for the his little 10-yard touchdown run. Mm-hmm. Aaron Donald almost got the pitch from Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's how fast he was in the
He's
backfield.
An amazing player.
He was incredible. Even holding out for the entire preseason. But again, I thought our O-line, we're still having trouble if teams bring 6 or 7 guys. I mean, really an all-out blitz.
Sure.
Still having some problems there. I'd like to see that cleaned up.
And let's be honest, it's kind of hard to pick up blitzes when they're in.
Yeah, I still think there's maybe a little bit of a communication issue going on. But overall, there's no way you can complain about what they did. Just even if you want to look just at the run game, I mean, they dominated. And so again, offensively, I don't think there's any way you can not be happy with this kind of football game, man.
Yeah,
I mean, physical. My third down analysis of the stats: the Redskins were 5 out of 13. They generated 73 yards on those third down plays. That's up from 24 yards last week. They converted 38.4% of their third downs, which was up for the 3 for 11, 3 for 11 last week.
Progress.
The average to go, the average yardage to make first down on third down was 6.7 yards. That is an improvement over the 8.18 yards the previous week.
Okay.
The average play on third down was 5.6 yards. They gained 5.6 yards per play on third down. And that's up from the 2.18 yards they garnered against the Eagles. Now, you say, why is this so important? Well, it's not, in one way. I mean, numbers are just numbers unless you can put them into some kind of usable form. What I'm trying to get as I go through the season with this is to give an idea of what kind of situations the Redskins are putting themselves in.
Right.
And then once they're in those situations, how are they doing? Are we putting ourselves in too deep a hole to where we're not converting anywhere? Are we not giving ourselves a chance to convert? Right. That's all this is.
Well, and I also think it's an opportunity for you on a week-to-week basis to look at the play calling and say, okay,
right,
what type of play calling caused you to be 8 yards back?
In here,
what type of play calling caused you to be further?
That's right.
That type of thing.
So again, take these stats. I'm not going to try to bore you with numbers all the time, but just take these stats. And again,
gosh, for a guy who talks bad about Pro Football Focus, right?
All I'm trying to do is, it was such a big glaring deficiency last year. I'm just trying to get an idea. Are we improved?
Yeah.
So again, vicious game by the offense.
Just like Tony Romo said, because analytics, folks.
Right, because analytics.
Because analytics.
Defensively, I really liked the way we played this game.
Yeah,
I like what we're doing these first 2 games. Yeah. And what I like right now is we are I think we're a much better coached unit. We look more comfortable they look like they're communicating better. I feel like structurally we're just better defense. Doesn't mean we're not perfect. Doesn't mean we're perfect at all.
Yeah.
I felt like in this game we didn't get anywhere near the kind of pressure on Goff that we did on Carson Wentz. We did have 2 sacks, Ryan Kerrigan and Preston Smith again. Those guys are fantastic.
Yep.
Kerrigan had a strip sack. Caught caused the fumble, but the Rams fell on it. That would have been huge. We had the interception by Mason Foster, who popped his shoulder back in. He had a separated shoulder, popped it in himself on the sideline, put a brace on, went back in the game, seals the deal with an interception. That's just
real man
that's
stuff
man
right
stuff
there.
right there. But again, Zach Brown had another solid game, 8 more solo tackles. I thought Josh Norman, Bashad Breeland, and Kendall Fuller, again, had solid days when they were in man-to-man coverage. Biggest plays the Redskins gave up were one 61-yard gain to the tight end on a busted coverage.
Yeah.
Can't have those. A couple other plays. There was a 28-yard completion on 3rd and 4 early in the game, and there was another 28-yard completion to Sammy Watkins on a 3rd and 5. Got to clean those up, especially on third downs.
Yeah.
But again, just as a whole, I thought Ioannidis had another good game. Jonathan Allen, just to quote Pro Football Focus, graded out very well in this game. He had 29. He was in for 29 snaps, which was the most among the defensive linemen. I don't think it's long before this guy has what we term as a breakout type game. But he's been very solid through 2 games. Cannot complain at all about that. There was a point in this game, and this is what worried me a little bit. Second half, Todd Gurley took over.
Yeah.
And they were fortunate to get themselves off the field with some they did some nifty work on third down a couple of times to get off the field to limit the damage. But there was a point in the second half where Gurley really found a groove. And he caught a touchdown pass, had another completion, another big catch. So Gurley gave them trouble more than I would have liked.
Yeah.
So that's something that we've had 2 games and we haven't given up 100 yards rushing yet, which the first 2 games of last year we were in the hole big time rushing yards wise. So there's a big improvement there, but they got to get some of that cleaned up. Definitely got to get some of that cleaned up.
Yeah.
2 biggest things, and I'll end with this. I thought Josh Norman's his ability to play. He caused 2 fumbles in this game.
Yeah.
The other one led directly to a field goal. Should have led to a touchdown, but just the way he punches the ball out, his awareness, is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Kendall Fuller,
don't tell me his play has dipped since he left Carolina.
No,
I don't want to hear
it hasn't. That dude's a beast. Kendall Fuller had one egregious missed tackle on kind of a screen, but then came back and had a huge one down in the red zone. Just blew the play up, much like he did last week against Philadelphia. This guy's playing with a lot of confidence. Felt like Swearinger had kind of a quiet game, but it was solid. Didn't have a lot of problems back there at safety. Monte Nicholson had a couple of them. He ended up starting over DeShazer Everett, which was kind of a big surprise. But I thought he keeps exceeding my expectations.
Yeah.
He really does. Overall, the defense, solid game. 2 biggest plays of the 2 biggest series is they held the Rams to 2 field goals inside the red zone, which is something they struggled with mightily last year. And if you think about it, after the fake punt on 4th and 5,
right.
If the Rams score a touchdown on that drive and make it 24-20, it's a completely different dynamic in how the Redskins approach that
Absolutely.
drive. It really is. Big difference between being tied 20-20
and being down
by 4. We've been that road before. Sometimes we've come out of it. Sometimes we haven't. So I'm very happy with this defense. Does not mean we don't have a lot to work on, but overall we're much improved through 2 games. Third down analysis very quickly. Rams were 5 out of 12, 41%. They gained 87 yards on their third downs, which is still a little bit more than I'd like to see teams get. But that's down from 142 from last week that the Eagles got. The average to-go yardage was 6.6, which is still okay. Anything 3rd and 6 or more, you're in solid shape.
Yeah.
That's not bad. The Rams averaged about 7.25 yards. So one thing that's interesting is the gap. The Redskins won this game, and the gaps between what they did on third down and what the Eagles did on third down, and what the Rams did was much smaller than what it was last week. So I kind of found that correlation interesting. Special teams wise, Dustin Hopkins breaks your heart again. Missed a 51-yarder.
Yeah.
Are
his days numbered?
No, not yet. I mean, it's hard to hammer a guy for missing a 50-yard field goal.
Oh, sure.
When you see a dude in preseason nail a few of them, you're just like, dude, nail this 51-yarder and let's put 3 more points on the board.
Yeah.
But he kicked another one. So far, he hasn't missed an extra point. So Tress Way continues to be a beast.
He's one of the league's better punters.
Love that guy. Overall, I thought special teams. The only gaffe was the fake punt. I thought the awareness overall was just not there on that play. Even though the Rams had even showed up. Dude, that sounded like a volcano fixing to erupt. So I thought that I was pretty bummed about the fake punt.
Yeah.
I think they have to do a better job thinking. I mean, you're at midfield. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That is perfect for a fake punt. But that's it. I thought it was a solid game. Okay. Thought it was just a good way to go in there and get a win after a
I thought it was
start.
And to do it against your former offensive coordinator on the road against. Look, let's be honest. The Rams are a team on the rise right now. They've got a lot of good stuff going.
The Rams are better, and we knew that going in. But I felt like the Redskins.
Yeah, and you want to see a team, rectify mistakes after all the,
did.
And I thought from week 1 and then the growth in week 2. Yeah, and I think for both the Steelers and the Redskins, they answered a lot of the questions going into their second week. So. Yes, good win. I agree. Chris, let's now move to Player of the Week. Chris, who was your #Redskins Player of the Week?
Chris Thompson.
Chris Thompson all the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no question, dude.
All right. Steelers Player of the Week. I had to think a lot about this. I'm going to go with Cameron Hayward. I have not seen a Steelers defensive lineman be that disruptive in a very, very long time. Maybe outside from some of the earlier days of Brett Kiesel. Just sheer dominance up there up front. It was like watching J.J. Watt at times. So Cameron Hayward is my Steelers Player of the Week. Chris, let's move to news headlines. Why don't we start with you? First thing I want to ask you about in the way of news. Sua Cravens, he's back.
He's not
He's
back.
Kind of not back, though.
No, he's actually done for the year.
Okay.
The Redskins now. Okay, so Sunday morning, Ian Rappaport tweeted out that Sua Cravens would be rejoining the team on Tuesday. And you begin to get some information on the Redskins side of things like, we haven't heard anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, Rappaport was adamant that, his source was right. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to shout out Burgundy Blog. If you are a Redskin fan and you are on Twitter, you need to follow Burgundy Blog. This guy has been at it. I've been following him since 2012. He is a doctor full-time. He's a surgeon, I think. But over the years, he just gives great. He's just a good football mind. He's a big Washington Redskin fan, but he keeps it real. He keeps it real. And he said that he had stumbled on a source that told him this thing was done, that it was done. So anyway, you kind of wondered what was going on. But anyway, so yesterday it comes out the Redskins went ahead and placed Sua Cravens on the instead of the exempt left team list, now he is now on the reserve left team list, which means he's done for the year. Now, what happened to cause the Redskins? Because if you'll remember, the way the Redskins did it, putting him on the exempt list, he was going to have they got a 4-week roster exemption. And ostensibly that was to allow Sua Cravens 4 weeks to figure this thing out and see what he wanted to do. I don't know what happened, and really nobody knows what happened to cause the Redskins to go ahead and say, you know what, we're just going to shut you down for the year. There is some speculation that Sua Cravens' camp is not happy about this, that they were indeed planning on showing up Tuesday. I don't know what that means. What I do know is that Burgundy Block's source was better than Rappaport's source. So, cha-ching.
What up, rap sheet?
So, I don't know what happened to precipitate that. Some people are kind of bashing the Redskins, saying this is a screw-up. Folks, the Redskins have had to react to this. They're not the ones that caused this. Sua Cravens, prior to week 1, kicked this whole thing off by leaving the team, quitting the team. So, I mean, you're in the Redskins were just in a series of reacting. They were just having to react to these different things.
Yeah, so, not much you can do about that.
At that point, I wonder if it's not the Redskins saying, look, We're just not going to be led around by the nose by a 22-year-old kid that can't figure out what he wants to do.
Sure.
We've got players here in the locker room that want to play, and how smart is it to try to reintroduce a guy after 4 weeks who may or may not want to play still?
If I could ask you a question very quick. CSN Redskins. Who is one of the hosts on that show?
Well, which one? There's
Black
several.
dude.
Oh, it's Brian Mitchell.
I think it was Brian Mitchell.
B.
He
Mitch.
had a great take the other day. He said, "We ain't running a daycare."
I love that dude. Yes.
And I was like, whoa. But, I mean, I think he's right. You know, he said, if I'm a head coach, he said, I've got players here right now that are available to me.
Exactly.
I'm playing them. I'm not playing we're not running a daycare here.
Right. And here's the thing. I said this back when the whole thing started. Sua Cravens is still somewhat of a question mark. I don't know what kind of safety he's going to turn into.
Well, sure. Yeah.
We're not talking about an all-pro safety quitting the team and you're waiting on bated breath to see if he's going to come back. Sua Cravens isn't that yet.
Yeah.
And he may never be. But I just think it's a way for the Redskins to just kind of move past this thing. Let's revisit it now. Does this mean that Sua Cravens can't, file a grievance saying, hey, I wanted to come back to work, they're not letting me? I don't know if that'll happen or not, but for right now, I think it kind of puts this situation to bed, and that's good. I guess the other news, and I'm not going to talk a long time about it, Santana Moss and the RG3 thing. I find it humorous. I think it's funny. It's funny to me. If you didn't already know about it, Santana Moss was on 106.7 The Fan, the local radio station up there, basically said that RG3 was gloating when Shanahan got fired, and as Santana so aptly put it, God don't like ugly. He don't like it when you're ugly to people. Whoa. And what goes around comes around. And the funniest thing about that whole interview is when he said, basically, I'm going to paraphrase it, but what he was saying is, RG3 thought he did so good getting Shanahan out the door, but in comes Gruden, and Gruden don't care what he says.
And Gruden talked about him behind his back the entire time.
No,
yeah.
Gruden talked to Griffin's face the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Moss said in meetings, he said he looked for reason to rip. Said he ripped him mercilessly.
Yeah.
And he said, we were all sitting back there saying, see, you thought you had it good, but look at you now, getting ripped all the time. And then, of course, RG3.
I was going to say, RG3 obviously says, oh, this isn't true.
RG3, on a series of tweets, if you want to go to his feed and read it, he defends himself, basically saying he's the victim in all this. Don't buy that. I was going
to say, this is not the first time we have heard talk of RG3 stirring up some kind of drama.
I mean, being a diva. And this thing went down in Washington, I think, very much like Santana says. Santana has a lot more credibility in my eyes in this matter.
And again, it's not the first time we've heard something like this happening with RG3.
But again,
I believe where there's smoke, there's probably fire.
I think it's funny more than anything.
Yeah.
Injury-wise, the Redskins did have a number of nick-ups in that game. Like I said, Mason Foster with a shoulder injury came back. Jordan Reed with a shoulder injury. A chest injury. He came back. They're listed as day-to-day. Rob Kelly went out with a fractured rib. He's listed as day-to-day. Monte Nicholson separated his shoulder. I'm not sure what his...
Holy cow. Keep your shoulders on, boys.
Right. So we did suffer. So I think Morgan Moses hurt his ankle again, but he left for a play and came back. So nothing season-ending, just nick-up. Biggest injuries to watch will definitely be Jordan Reed and Rob Kelly.
Absolutely.
All right, Patrick.
Yeah.
I want to ask you two things.
Okay.
And they involve linebackers. So we'll stay in the
We don't know about those
We'll
in
stay in the
Pittsburgh.
same personnel grouping. Sunday, there was an injury, and they put Chicolo in.
Yes. TJ Watt went down with a groin.
And they did not put James Harrison in. Number one, is this a problem? Has Harrison expressed any kind of problem?
No.
Okay. And would you think this was just a matter of going with the hot guy?
I think that's exactly what it is. And I think it is surprising, and it's also not surprising. It's surprising in the sense that obviously TJ Watt got the start at the beginning of the season. That wasn't surprising. But James Harrison was listed as the number 2 depth guy. In terms of injuries and health, we know James Harrison at 39 is in the best shape of his life. You don't have to be a Steeler fan to see the insane workouts on his social media. We know this guy's in shape. That was the shock of it, that he did not get the start when TJ Watt went out. Here's what isn't surprising about it. And in my opinion, here's why it's not surprising that Chicolo got the nod. Folks, the Steelers have been trying to get rid of James Harrison for a long time. Now, no. That sounds mean when I say that.
Right.
I don't mean the Steelers don't have beef with him. We love James Harrison. He's the Steelers' all-time sack leader.
Right.
The reverence that this organization has for this guy, it's not bad feelings here. But for the longest time, we tried the wretched Jarvis Jones experiment. We tried the Arthur Moats experiment. We tried the Jason Worlds experiment a couple years back. We have tried to move to youth at the outside linebacker position for how many years? Many years. And so many times we've had to call James Harrison back because the young guys can't get it done. Well, finally, Anthony Chickillo, going into his third year, is actually playing good football. He had 2 sacks last week against Cleveland. This week did not have a sack, but he brought consistent pressure off that right side all game long. So in his Tuesday press conference, Mike Tomlin said he was asked about James Harrison descending, and Mike Tomlin, you got to love the way he answers questions. He said, is James Harrison descending or a guy's on the rise? Talking about Anthony Chickillo. He also went on to say that, look, we are not done with James Harrison. Obviously, we will call on him later in the season, and he said he will answer, just like he always has over the course of his career. So is it a little bit shocking? Is it a little bit troubling? Yeah, I guess, because James Harrison's one of my favorite players of all time. But at the same time, guys, it should not overly surprise you.
But isn't it a decent problem to have that you've got a young guy in the hopper that they at least feel like, hey, he can...
Yeah. I mean, look, you can't say Chickillo's playing bad football right now. It's very encouraging to see what Chickillo's finally doing. So it's something that is surprising, but at the same time, guys, we've seen this coming for a long time. In terms of TJ Watt's groin injury, the good news is that it is not serious. What is the severity of it? Mike Tomlin said he's going to, quote-unquote, leave the light on for him this coming week in practice. Says that he does have a chance to play. Will he play? We'll see. I think we know in Pittsburgh, based on Le'Veon Bell and Bud Dupree, that groin injuries can be something kind of serious. So if he had to miss a week, I don't think that's a bad thing, but we'll kind of monitor it and watch it. But the good news is that it's not overly serious. But we'll see how it goes. Does go in this week.
All right, next question on the news front, and kind of big. Dolphins suspended Lawrence Timmons
indefinitely.
Yeah, he was not with the team for their first game of the season, for actual first game of the season, and he was supposedly taking care of personal matters, which was why he was not there and they couldn't get up with him. But the question is this: does this open a door for Timmons to come back to Pittsburgh? Should they bring him back?
Here, okay, first off, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't been monitoring the situation. I have. I have been monitoring it from the very start. And it's been one of the most bizarre situations when you think about it. Timmons goes from he's very upset with the Dolphins. That was the first report to, no, I'm actually seeing a doctor and he'll return to practice whenever he gets back. And now it's, no, he's suspended indefinitely. Now, here's another interesting thing. He was at Steelers practice last week. He was I don't think he was there doing any contract negotiations, obviously. He was just there kind of mucking it up and visiting the old boys. Guys, here's the thing. If I was to make you a list of my top 10 favorite Steelers of all time, Lawrence Timmons would be on that list. I think he was one of the most solid, steady, and consistent linebackers this team has had in its rich history. No, I don't think that's a dramatic statement. I think it's 100% true. I love Lawrence Timmons. Do I think Timmons coming back makes sense? Not really, no. Now, am I going to cry if we sign him back? Absolutely not, because this guy has still got plenty left in the tank. But are you guys honestly unhappy with the way Vince Williams is playing right now? No. Vince Williams is also younger. That's something you got to take into effect. And also, you got to look at how Tyler Matakevich is playing football right now as well.
Right.
So, do I think he could come back? I mean, I guess there's a possibility. I would say it's on the very low end of the totem pole. But it is going to be interesting to watch how this thing plays out. Here's what we do know. He wants out of Miami. It is very clear that he wants to get out of there.
And Lawrence Timmons never gave the Steelers an ounce of trouble in all his years there. So
this is so out Mike Tomlin didn't want to let him go.
Right. This is so out of character for this guy.
Yeah.
So definitely worth watching.
It's going to be interesting to watch, and I don't know. Maybe Tyson Alula might have to give that number 94 back. Doubt it, but we'll see. Alejandro Villanueva, we talked about him during the game recap. So he had a terrible game. Everson Griffin absolutely murdered him all game long. It came out that he had an illness all week long leading up to the game. So when you combine an illness with Everson Griffin and you factor in that it was about 80 degrees in Heinz Field on Sunday, not a very good recipe for success. Now, Here's something I thought was interesting. Alejandro Villanueva, Chris, get ready for this, lost 20 pounds in 1 week due to this illness. According to left guard Ramon Foster, who was on 93.7 The Fan today, he said Villanueva could not keep anything down all week long. Just constant vomiting. Mike Tomlin in his press conference today said it was not something that was going to keep him out of the game this coming Sunday. That's encouraging, but yeah, I mean, hopefully this guy can get well. 20 pounds in 1 week, that is unreal.
Wow.
I mean, this burger's doing a number on me right now. I can only imagine what he was going through. So, Stephon Tuitt, Mike Tomlin, once again, same thing last week, said that he does have a chance to play this week. He also said that he would practice in some capacity. They said they would basically just kind of get a feel for where he's at right now. I don't expect him to go Sunday, and frankly, I don't want him to go Sunday. Wouldn't be a bad thing to let him rest just one more week, let him get that bicep healthy. Honestly, are you unhappy with the way Tyson Alualu is playing football right now? Absolutely not. So I say give Tuitt one more week, but we'll see how he does this week. And J.J. Wilcox is the last guy on the list. He is still in the concussion protocol per Mike Tomlin. He did say he is in the last stages of it, so he could probably be released from that any day now. And last but not least, kind of an interesting stat for you guys, the Steelers have been penalized 23 times in the first 2 weeks of football. That is a franchise record. 13 times last week, 10 times this week. So that's not a stat that you run around and put on the back of a T-shirt. Hopefully that's something the Steelers can clean up, but just a little fun stat for you guys to think about. So, holy cow, Chris, I don't want to talk anymore.
No, I don't think you need to.
I don't think I need to either. It's only a matter of time before YouTube
One of us is getting splashed.
It's about to be R-rated in here.
Yeah, we're fixing to get splashed.
All right, guys, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Chet's like he's getting on the other side. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at Steelskin Show. Remember to follow us individually. I am at P_Garrison. He is at CGLSKSC. Like the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Steelskin Show. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Watch the videos, comment below. And iTunes. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to write a review. And make sure to, what's the other thing we do? Subscribe, write a review, and rate. That's going to help us out a lot. And, guys, a segment we would like to get going here on the Steelskin Show is listener questions or viewer questions, depending on if you're watching it. We'd love to take your questions. We'd love to answer as many as we could. If you'd like to submit a question to us to answer, email steelskinshow@gmail.com. Email us your questions, and we'll answer as many of them as we can in the later parts of the show. Chris, that's all I got, man.
All right.
All right, guys, until next week, have a good evening. I'm going to go take care of this burger issue. Until then, good night.